question. I think it's better rather to go parallel instead of waiting for one thing. I think world community has already full capability to construct a fast breeder reactor, fast burner reactor. But problem is what the cost should be. So I think we can get breakthrough in a short period of time if world community work joint together. So our power processing program is well harmonized with that development of fast reactor. Our target, our program is well harmonized with the Generation 4 international forum schedule. So our target is to construct a commercial scale fast reactor in the year 2050, something like that. But we think that in the 2030s, we can have a demonstration reactor. So our power processing program is harmonized with that time schedule. So I think is to solve the energy security problem and to solve the greenhouse gas reduction problem. I think nuclear is essential, and we have to go parallel both fuel cycle and fast reactor technology development.
Other questions? We'll start in the back, and then we will come up here to Mr. Kevin.
Can I ask perhaps more of an accumulation? What is more of a process than a substantive question? Which agencies of both governments, which centers of expertise were involved in these questions? They taking place solely at the technical level, and who's handling the policy level? And is the Defense Ministry of Japan and or the Pentagon involved in all this discussion?
Formal negotiations, as I understand, have not begun, but the agencies in the U.S. that are primarily involved are the Departments of State and Energy and the national laboratories of the Department of Energy from a technical point of view. And I'm pretty sure it's the same as the counterparts in Korea when you're talking about the Foreign Ministry and KEI and those kind of groups.
Kevin Logan from the Department of Justice. I was wondering if you could discuss what caused the national labs to change their view of pyroprocessing to be less tamper-resistant than it was originally perceived.
It was my understanding is that basically what you were looking at is a question of what their conclusion came to was that yes, if you just did pyroprocessing as it was designed, it creates certain proliferation resistance in the material, but the ability to change the system pretty quickly would not give you sufficient timely warning that if, for instance, I'm just saying not that South Korea would do this, but if South Korea wanted to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and develop nuclear weapons, but they could change the system over fairly quickly to do that, so that it was not, in that sense, proliferation resistant. So it's kind of a question of what you're focusing on just a technological approach or sort of a more broader kind of political systems approach.
I'm actually going to jump in real quick. Miles, if you would expand just a little bit on what's currently going on with India and the precedent and or effect it should have on U.S. ROK talks about this.
Well, I mean, obviously I think I never supported the India agreement. I think it was a really poor deal, and it set a lot of bad precedents, and I could certainly understand from the South Korean viewpoint that why would we be willing to let countries not as signatory to the NPT and not as close an ally to the United States get certain benefits, while South Korea, which is a close ally and is a member of the NPT, gets others, does not get those benefits. My understanding on, I mean, overall understanding with the Indians presumed that we would reach an agreement with them on how to safeguard their facility, a reprocessing facility, in line with IAEA safeguards. And I think those are the negotiations that still have to take place between the United States and India.
The effect on, okay. In the back, I see Hawan, and then up here in the third row.
Thank you. My name is Hawan Lee. I'm working for South Korean newspaper. I'd like to make a question to Mr. Promper. Mr. Promper, could you give me your analysis? What kind of influence will be made after the nuclear security summit is being held next month by President Obama to the South Korea's trying to make use of the pyroprocessing?
I don't think this will be a major issue at the security summit. I mean, there's the focus on the summit is nuclear security issues, which are questions such as reducing civil use of highly enriched uranium and protecting facilities against theft by terrorists. I mean, who knows what kind of side discussions the president may have with his counterparts, but that will not be on the official summit agenda, and I think this is too early for this issue to have reached the presidential level. It's being worked at lower levels at this point.
We had up here in the front, and then 2, and then 3 in the back.
Thank you. Mike Billington with Executive Intelligence Review. Dr. Park, could you discuss the very ambitious nuclear export policy of your government, which I believe wants to export about 80 nuclear plants in the next 30 years? If this negotiation were not to be achieved, what would be the impact on your export policy? Do you think it's essential that you have the full cycle in order to be a trustworthy exporting nation? And if I can ask, secondly, perhaps you can comment on how you see the lineup, Miles, in the U.S. Who do you think is backing this, and who do you think would be, who or what agencies would be the biggest hindrance to getting this done, if you think you can comment?
As you know, I am from a research institution. I don't have any idea about the export of nuclear reactors, and also I am not in the position to talk about export. Problem is, all I concern is, how we can manage the domestic spend nuclear fuel. So we are focusing on finding the best way for managing the domestic spend nuclear fuel. So if that technology development is successful, I think that could be a global standard. That's our hope, but now we are only focusing on the domestic issues.
A couple of things. On the first question, I mean, one thing to keep in mind is that South Korea's reactors are based in part on U.S. technology, so they need a nuclear cooperation agreement in order to have those licensing agreements and so on go forward so that they can export their own reactors. Does Korea need a full fuel cycle to be a nuclear exporter? Well, obviously they didn't sell reactors at the UAE. So that didn't seem to be an issue there. I mean, there's other people who can provide other elements of the fuel cycle. Canada, I would point out, has been exporting reactors for years and doesn't have a full fuel cycle. So I don't think it's an absolutely necessary requirement for a nuclear exporter to have a full fuel cycle to be in business. Especially, one of Korea's major advantages is price for the reactors. You can get the other services cheaper elsewhere than you'd be able to get them from Korea. You can get enrichment from the Russians, for instance. In terms of the agencies involved, I don't know right now about the current makeup. There was a perception under the Bush administration that the State Department was more supportive of allowing some interpretations of the rules that pyroprocessing would not be considered reprocessing than the Energy Department was, but it seems to me that there's probably a pretty united interpretation right now of what's going on. Excuse me? That pyroprocessing is reprocessing and should not be viewed as substantively different in terms of how you deal with it from a non-proliferation point of view.